In the 50s, the results of the Brookings study was that there would be a complete societal collapse, right? And I don't think that's so true today. I think we're, through things like X-Files or, Fringe or, these shows that we watch, movies, I think we've been somewhat conditioned to the notion that the aliens may exist. But I think that the day that we found out that it was actually true, that there would be a lot of problems that day. I think you'd have a day of just pure shock. And then the next day there's going to be some problems because, there are certain parts of the population that I don't think would take it well because it would challenge their concepts of certain things. And some of them hold to these concepts very rigidly. And a lot of them don't. A lot of people don't. But there are some people that would, and I think those people might have trouble rationalizing it. I mean, look, remember a while back there was a big asteroid that came floating through the solar system. It was like traveling really fast and slingshotted around the sun. And it had a whole rendezvous with Rama thing going on. And, everybody's like, oh, it's an alien probe. Look, it looks like a cigar and all that. To this day, there's recently been a paper published where they think they found where it came from. But to this day, nobody can really explain how that happened and what that thing was. And there are a lot of scientists that say, it could have possibly been an alien artifact of some kind. We just don't know because it was in and out too fast. We couldn't land anything on it. But even in that moment, that when that happened, a lot of people, no, it can't be aliens because, we're the only people that exist in the universe and et cetera, et cetera. And, the more rigid your beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, psychological beliefs about some of these things, the more trouble you would have rationalizing that concept. I mean, I think that's why a while back the Pope came out and said, well, you know what, there probably are aliens. And he told the Catholic, the worldwide Catholic audience, pretty stunning, but he said, there probably are aliens and that's okay. They were created, consistent with Catholic beliefs and you shouldn't worry about that. And it's like, you take those moments and you think to yourself, why are you doing that? Why would you go to that trouble unless you know something?
Well,
because you're basically telling them not to freak out. I think a lot of people would freak out.
Well, the Catholic Church spends a lot of money stargazing and watching what's going on.
They do. They spend a lot of it.
Yeah.
They actually, if I remember correctly, they have a very large telescope they call like Lucifer or something, the Lucifer Project.
Oh, yeah, they do. And they actually have quite a few different ones all around the world watching,
Oh, yes.
So, I did tell, if they didn't believe that they were aliens, why would they even be looking, at the stars to see what's going on? That,
right.
They're out there watching. Everybody's watching. I really think that, I hate to say it, I really do feel the government knows what's going on. They just don't want the people to know. And they keep us confused.
Yeah, but I think the whole thing about the moon, I think that's because we're actually on the moon. So I don't think that the aliens called us up on the hotline and were like, hey, Prez, don't send anybody back. I think that's actually because we have stuff up there. And the more times we land on the moon or go around the moon, it's kind of like floating satellites over Area 51. Every time they do that, they have to cover up what they're working on or roll it back in. And, so I think that's probably us telling ourselves, don't go there. But, I do definitely believe there is actually, I don't have time tonight to discuss it, but there is actually a very interesting story about an alien artifact on the moon that's called Apollo 20 that we should probably chit chat about sometime. But
well, let's do that on our next show.
There.
Let's do that on our next show.
Yeah, Apollo 20 is fascinating, and it is about aliens on the moon. And I don't discount the idea that there's stuff that crashed on the moon or had been there from some, primordial time. Maybe they were using it as a base, but I definitely think that the moon is solely inhabited by humans at this point.
Oh, that's a big possibility. But, like Buzz, when he got off the when he landed on the moon, he kept talking about, the objects over there. They were huge,
well, there was a very interesting C-SPAN interview with Buzz Aldrin, if you can find it on YouTube. And he was talking about his book. He had just written a book called Magnificent Desolation. And basically, he was going into, what it was like to actually be on the moon. And he said something very interesting, and then he recounted a story that was very interesting. The thing that he said that was very interesting was that at one point they were talking about the constant funding cuts to NASA and the idea that we're going to stop sending people up there and just do everything, robotically with telemetry and whatever. And he said, you can't do that. You have to have people. People need to see this stuff. People need to go out and find this stuff. Where's our sense of adventure, et cetera? And Buzz Aldrin was always a huge proponent of that. The adventure of going into space. And at one point he says, I forget exactly how he put it, but he said, there's weird stuff out there that we need to find. He says, you may not know this, but there's a monolith on one of the Martian moons on Phobos. He said, it's a monolith, from 2001. And he said, hey, I don't know who put it there. God put it there. The universe put it there. Aliens put it there. I don't know, but we need to go to Phobos and see what this thing is. And the minute that he got really impassioned about it, and the minute there was any kind of a break in him, and he was going to keep going, but the minute there was a bit of a break in what he was saying, the host from C-SPAN cut him off and said, oh, we've got somebody on line 2, and let's go to Jimbo on line 2. And they go to this guy on line 2, and he wanted to talk about this design for an airlock that Aldrin had come up with, and completely redirected the entire conversation, and they shut him down.
Well, the guy the interviewer probably got a little message in his headphones. Hey, don't talk about it. Don't go there.
Well, and what's interesting is that when they shifted the context of the conversation, Aldrin looked a little stunned and confused. And then he said something else interesting. He recounted a story. The guy had asked him why he named the book Magnificent Desolation. And he recounted the story where when he had gotten back from the moon, he went to a cocktail party. And I would imagine that, you're an American hero. You get invited to a lot of cocktail parties. Well, this one in particular, he was standing there. I had this kind of mental vision of him standing there in a 70s kind of suit, and he's sipping a martini, and this guy walks up to him and says, hey Buzz, what was it like actually being on the moon? And he said that when the guy asked him that his mind went blank, that he couldn't rationalize how to explain it. And he said that he couldn't think, he panicked, he blurted out Magnificent Desolation, then he ran to the bathroom and he vomited.
Huh. I wonder if he was brainwashed a little bit when he came back.
That's what I was wondering, is that in doing that, it sounds like a trigger response of brainwashing.
It does.
And I think, I'm a firm believer we went to the moon. I think that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong did a heroic, amazing thing. And I think that they were 100,000% honest in what they said when they came back and what they reported. But they also landed off target. They had missed their landing target. They were running out of fuel. They had to actually manually land the lander. In fact, when you listen to them landing the lander, you can hear the tension. And I think that it's possible that they had seen stuff that they were not supposed to see. And when they came back, that somebody either instructed them or they were, told, they were effectively brainwashed to forget it. Because Aldrin, he's such a lover of space. I can't believe that at this point, he wouldn't be talking about it. And I think you see glimpses of that with the Phobos conversation. He was so impassioned it really is an interesting interview to watch.
Oh yeah, I've seen little clips of it and stuff like that, and I do feel that he was probably brainwashed, and and there's probably key words and stuff like that automatically trigger something where his memory it has no memory.
He just blurted out magnificent desolation and ran to the bathroom. That's exactly the way he described it. But it definitely, and you look at what happened to them after they landed on the moon. Aldrin, is a very gregarious guy. So, he was out there doing interviews, whatever. Neil Armstrong went into seclusion. He taught, he did not speak. He didn't, getting him to go to events was tremendously difficult.
Well, I don't know how much pressure they had on him when they got back or whatever.
A lot.
Yeah. Probably just to keep quiet. I know that when they came out of the lander, and he swore that he saw something, and they kept telling him go to the medical channel because they knew, they were being listened to, and he kept blurting, "Look how big they are! They're bigger than anything we have," and all that stuff. It makes you wonder that he did see something. I'm sure he just wouldn't, imagine that after landing.
Well, these guys are seasoned military officers. They had been in combat. Some of them, they were highly trained, and they did not panic. I mean, when they're landing, you can hear the pressure, and you can hear the tenseness. As Aldrin's reading off the altitude and fuel consumption, and Armstrong's trying to land this thing. You can hear it in their voices. But they're not panicking. They're going through the atomically, 1, 2, 3. And, Armstrong tells Aldrin, read off the altitude and fuel consumption so we can get this thing down. And it's like, they're not freaking out. They're not scared. They're on a mission. They're going to complete it. So, for them to get out there and for them to go, what is that thing? It's so huge. They're reporting what they're seeing because they're trained observers. So you have to wonder.
Yeah, and he kept it. Also, if I remember right, he kept saying, "They're not ours. They're not ours."
I think they probably were ours, but he sure didn't know about it.
Yeah, that makes you wonder. Then you start wondering how far our technology was advanced at that point. And I hate to say it, I think it goes back all the way back to Nazi Germany. I think technology
goes back before.
Yeah,
actually, Walter Bosley, who's written a whole series of books about the Sonora Aero Club. It's actually our main article for the new issue of Paranoia. He wrote an article linking the Nazi Bell to pictures drawn by a guy named Delschow in the 1800s of these dirigibles from the 1800s. That he actually, in Delschau's art of these arrows from the Sonora Aero Club in the late 1800s, he's found evidence of the Bell. So it would appear to go back even further. That by the time you get to Nazi Germany, that they're doing tests on the Bell and other things, they had actually had it for probably 60 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's a, not to plug my magazine, but I mean it's an amazing article that Walter wrote. You should interview him. Walter's fascinating.
Well, how can people, our time is almost up. How can they find your magazine, and how can they find you and all this stuff? Why don't you tell everybody how we can do that? ParanoiaMagazine.com is our central hub of all things paranoid. We do publish a magazine. We just had issue number 65 come out. Walter's article on the Bell and the arrows is the lead article. We have an amazing cover done by Kiliano. He's a tattoo artist. He made an amazing cover for us. You can find it on Amazon. Just put in Paranoia Magazine, issue 65. But ParanoiaMagazine.com is kind of the epicenter. Our podcast, which we've relaunched, is on there. We have just put up an interview with Nick Redfern. You can find our magazine. You can find, we have a bunch of T-shirts that we made of CIA airlines and other fun stuff if you want a T-shirt. So, there's a lot of interesting stuff on there. Instagram, Facebook, it's all Twitter, it's all linked. Okay, again, define your podcast. What do they have to do?
go to paranoiamagazine.com or SoundCloud.